them are switching to non-potable water for cooling, so it reduces the usage of the local water. And they are looking into installing solar panels, wind turbines to create the draw on the local power.
Right. Yes, ma'am.
And some are recycling the water, but they can reuse it.
Reusing water. Okay. So we see that. Yes.
So they say that they recycle water, they don't necessarily recycle water. My understanding that, people from the users, they have to be tracked. On top of that, if you're using electric, I understand that they have your tax rate on it, and after 10 years, they say, well, they have to be credits and the state of where they are, and then we're going to pull out and then get
No, I just need the one, but I'm not sure that's gonna adapt to this. I'm not sure if this is a good, what's coming out here. But, so we have about 39 data centers, and of that number, about 12 of them, so a third of them are off. And that's broken. They might inside, they might go all over the kind of stuff. But probably the most impressive percentage, or let's say, depending on how you look at it, is the percentage of data centers that are in plans specifically for rural areas. And who thinks they know that about? What percentage do you think it is? What would you say? 40%, that's conservative. By right on 67%. 67% of new data center developments are planned for rural areas. Yes, ma'am. But four.
And guess what all rural county is designated as?
What's that?
Four.
Four.
Four counties is fixed up.
You guys have higher than one. Is that right? Yeah. I kind of go back for, yeah. So yeah, some economic challenges, right, which are also going to complicate matters. Because raise your hand if you don't want your neighbors to have good jobs. You want your neighbors to have good jobs, right? Everybody wants that, right? Everybody wants the economic development. But it cannot be at the sacrifice of humans and human lives, right? And so that's a line that many times we work with when you're talking about data center development. And again, it's all going to come back to whatever the agreement is that you have baked in to whatever the data center development.
You say agreement, you're talking about access centers, like
Not just silos, we won't get to that. We're talking about the entire agreement that says the bringing in, how you can develop them, jobs, community benefits, whole shebang. Yes, sir. Thanks so much. Yeah, good. Yeah, I work on my slides, I have graphics and everything. I want y'all to see. I think I saw one of my team members, Zakia, who was walked in. Way back, folks. Zakia is our government relations lobbyist. She gets all the stuff done at the state house, and she gets it done. Thank you. So let's go back a little bit, because sometimes we get, terms thrown out. Data centers. What's a data center? What does that mean? What even is that? Yep. Facility that houses servers, computers, cooling towers, networking equipment. Again, we're all on our phone all day. Who's ever used their laptop and had it on their legs? After about 10 minutes, what happens? So think about a building full of servers, and they're having to process all of these different tasks all day, every day, for like a accountability skill. How hot do you think they do? They get very hot. Ma'am? Say that once more. How enough to make your electric go up? We need that on a t-shirt. How enough to make your electric go up? So what are these facilities for? We already talked about functions on your phone, but also banking, online banking, Bitcoin. Who has like my charger? Yeah, I need a description. I can see it quickly. I don't have to go to the doctor. All those types of functions. It needs cloud storage. All those pictures of your grandbabies and your dogs and that you hold on to. Maybe those 10 years ago, maybe look like this. Now someone has to keep all that data. That's what we mean by cloud storage. Yes, ma'am.
And also for surveillance.
Okay. Surveillance. All right. We're going to bring that in here, okay? Surveillance. Yeah. Because if someone breaks into your home, right? You want to be able to go back to Green 3 months ago. Let's say it's 3 months ago, right? It's a trigger robbery. It's a start at your house. The police want us to see where it's started from. You can go to Green and say, well, 3 months ago in March, this fellow came to my house. Him and his woman, because, all kinds of children do crimes, right? They came to my house and stole some stuff in the video. Someone has to keep that data. It has to sit somewhere. Back in the day, we had floppy disks, no drives. But now we have drives.
About people that haven't been.
Say that again.
About the people that haven't
The say it once.
People that have not committed a crime, doing a record deal,
Well,
not that.
I think, time for us to live. So let's talk a bit about the sizes of data centers. I wish I could show y'all my slides so we can kind of go through it. So they range from micro to hyper scale. So a micro center is probably about 5,000 square feet or less, and it produces about 150 kilowatts of energy, right, all the time. So think about that as edge computing. So we think about that. So think about it like your house. You have your server and all of your files kind of stay on your folder inside your house, right? You have a family folder. So we got edge computing. It don't really go outside of that geographic area. So think about like smart systems, retail inventory. So think about like let's say Dollar General, this phone line. They may be your servers in the house, right? That's a micro. Small would be 5,000, 20,000 square foot of space that's needed. Regional operations, so think about that like a hospital system or a doctor's office that has multiple locations. Local government operations, so like city of Bennettsville. So it might be like a water company, light company, or separate, town hall, all these different operations, right? So they need a bit more space, but they don't need as much. When we need them, it's like 20,000 to 100,000 square feet. I need a building. Right, this is like they're up to 49 megawatts. This is like 1 point off from hyperscale. So think about it like university, their IT systems, their cloud engineering. And then the one you hear about most is your hyperscale. Right? That's anything 50 megawatts or more. It's gonna take over 100,000 square feet of space. That's when you think about those big old massive centers that you see online. Google data center, that's probably what Google Images is going to show you. That's what we're talking about, global processing. That's what we're talking about, your social media, right? We're holding on to things, whether that's Facebook, Instagram, or whatever. Cloud storage, right? So, you said something about, like, you did. You said, what does that do for what? We call it energy. We begin with South Carolina Energy Justice Coalition. So, who's in the name? We're always trying to come up with solutions for people to be able to afford their energy so that the energy system works better. We turn the term affordability. It's been thrown around, and we've all heard affordability. But basically what that means is you have the ability to pay to keep you in your home without foregoing other needs. Many people are foregoing other needs. We call that heater heat or cooler food. And that means that people have to make a choice to say, do I pay my energy bill or I get my medicines, or I pay my energy bill or I get food. It happens every day. In South Carolina, energy rates are among the highest in the nation. That doesn't mean per kilowatt hour. That's what they teach you and say, no, we're cheaper per kilowatt. That's true. We are cheaper per kilowatt hour, but I want you to think about it this way. So, if you ever bought like t-shirts for, let's say, a family reunion, they'll get you this, it's like $10 t-shirt. You're like, yes, that's cool it. And then they're like, but you gotta buy 5. So you don't feel that smaller cost because the volume is so high. Same way with energy in South Carolina, right? So yes, per kilowatt hour, cost is pretty minimal, as related to the rest of the country. But because we use so much more, we don't feel the savings. And that is what people are seeing with these data centers, is seeing them drive those costs even more. Again, not always, not forever, not in every situation. But we're talking about in general. So why? Why do we? It's 4 main factors. It's electricity, it's the grid, it's generators, and it's the fact they run 24 hours. I think you said that too, right? So data centers require continuous, reliable electricity. Why does it need to be reliable? What does it mean when electricity is not reliable? What happens? Blackouts, surges. A surge looks like the lights blink for a second, right? It just kind of blink. Now picture the server that has your bank account. At the exact moment that you're going to purchase groceries. You can't have that happen. These things cannot happen. So they have to have continuous power, and they about power lines, they work, basically, right? They work. Yes, ma'am. Size of grid upgrades, ongoing maintenance. All of that costs money, right? And data centers require all of that. Data centers of that size, they use a large number. You already mentioned earlier about 49 megawatts. Let's go with that example for a second. What's that? We said we have 49 megawatt data center. Let's Electric. So in Marlboro Electric has the power they have now. The power they have now is more so to process power that residents use and even businesses use. The difference is when that grid was made, that infrastructure was put into place, no one imagined data centers. No one knew that you would be running 49 megawatts of power 24/7, right? Even plants don't usually run constantly like that, right? And what that also causes is, who said something about surges over here? Surges, right? Because you're using so much power, and especially at peak usage. What's peak usage? What is COVID? And children learning from home. We all working from home. We use way more internet than we ever did, which means we use way more power than we ever did. Surges, right? So it just never imagined that type of power. And you got to pay for it. So there's new generation, there's transmission assets, there's upgrades that have to be made by City of Marlboro Electric. Somebody got to pay for it. They probably won't pay for it themselves. So that's when we get to regulatory decisions. Thank goodness in this state, we do have a regulatory body called the Public Service Commission. And one of their duties is to regulate the energy system. So what happened is, let's just say Marlboro Electric, they approach PSC and they say, hey, this county council said this data center is coming. We didn't say it was coming, they said it's coming. So now that it's coming, they need X amount of power. It's because the power we have is not sufficient. So we have to build these things out. Now we build this stuff out of our pocket. We don't estimate this. We employ like 5,000 people. We can't pay for that. So somebody got to pay for it. Somebody has to pay for it. And usually that's ratepayers, which is y'all, homeowners, and also commercial customers. And that looks like rate increases. So you hear things like this electric company approached PSC for a rate increase. They're having a rate case. Usually going to be tied to some sort of upgrade in data centers and generators sometimes, many times, right? And it gets passed on to customers, and you are customers, because someone has to pay for it. No free lunch, right? That's what people always say. Someone has to pay for it. Now, it's up to PSC to decide how those costs are shared. Percentage-wise. How much your customers are going to pay, how much is data center development. Data center development, okay? The issue is, again, right now, data centers are an unregulated market. Ain't no regulations. Now, there are policies in place to change that. There were this legislative session right here. I don't think they made it through quite yet. No. We finished without any progress. We'll say a little too bit on that.
Thank you, Shannon. So I'm Zakia Nicole. I'm the lobbyist for the Energy Justice Coalition. And so our legislative session is from January to May. We went on a little longer this year because of other stuff our government was working on. But I can tell you that from January to May, we saw 3 data center regulation bills, which we just really created some guardrails. We would have just said, hey, we're going to do business here. Here are the rules. Here's how we're here's how we're going to make sure that, again, like Shane was saying, ratepayers aren't putting the bill. There's a lot of consumer protections in those things. I sat through 7 hearings for the bill that had the most, promise to maybe make it past the finish line, and it never even made out of the subcommittee in the Senate, which is the first step. So it never even made it out of the subcommittee process to get to the floor, to get to the Senate floor, to then get to the House, so that we can be protected. And so we went there and packed the room, and advocates gave commentary as well as residents, and our General Assembly just chose not to put those guardrails in place. And so that tells you, that for the next at least 6 months until we can get back there in January, these folks can kind of come here and do business with counties in whatever way they want to. And we can talk more about what we can do to slow that down outside the legislative process, but I can say there were senators, 3, who put forward bills who they weren't perfect, they weren't perfect, but they would have gotten us some support, some protection, and we just couldn't get those bills to get any real consideration for communities like yours to be protected. But I know Shane has a lot more to share. I don't want to.
You guys have any questions from the policy perspective? No. Well, you do. Yes, ma'am.
So would it be wise to have the regulations before we accept it? And I say we, our community, accept the data centers to our community.
There are ways to advocate on the county level, in all manner of ways. That's why I don't want to skip ahead of her plan, but we've seen counties do a lot of things to protect themselves from this type of development or to put safeguards in place if things have already sort of gotten moved into a place where we can't stop it. And I actually wear a couple of hats, and so in some other roles, in some other spaces just across the country, we've seen different creative ways that folks have been able to either stop this type of development if that's what the community wants, or to regulate it to sort of diminish some of that harm. So I don't want to get too far ahead, but more on that later.
So that's an important point. So let's say maybe at this point, this particular juncture, maybe agreement with that center for them to develop in their area. Right now, they're going to say that regulations. The only protection you're going to get is whatever you bake into that agreement, right? And some of the developers may have continuing terms. Now, I'm not kidding. We have partners. One of our partners is South Carolina Environmental Law Project, and they did a presentation for us. And one of the attorneys was like, some of the jargon they gave her as a seasoned attorney, she was like, what's this? And it's because this industry is so new, right? So you have to be informed when you're going to the dairies, when you're going into these decisions. So I'm gonna go back to this is who we are. Right? So I'm gonna take a picture of that slide because I think I couldn't show it to you, right? But yes, that is who we are. Right, there we go. Alright, so what the community is going to ask? Little trace, electricity rates increase. Now I want to do this after we talk a little because you'll see that the questions you ask are probably going to be reflected up here. Can the local grid handle additional demand? Right? Who pays for infrastructure upgrades? Who pays? How are reliability and resilience maintained? What happens during extreme weather events? I have no idea because we don't know what the agreement says. You also have no idea. You won't have any idea until the agreement is made. Issue is sometimes that some developers insist on non-disclosure agreements. Which means your county council, when they see that agreement, may not be able to tell you what it says until you're in the agreement. Right? So again, it's always going to go back to how your agreement is designed. Right? So, why they use water? Who asked about water? Who said something about heater? We did classes. Yep, and you. So this is why. Because they got to keep the service full. Now, there's different kind of cooling systems. Some of them use these big air conditioners. So again, think about your laptop, you that fan come on. Kind of like the same process. But nothing can be cool like water. That's why when we're outside and we're working outside, we use ice cold water. Because nothing cools you as efficiently. Same way with these systems. So, these guys are developers who are extremely smart people found that water is the most efficient way to cool their systems. Now, since that, they have scaled up the technology, and they have closed-loop systems, hybrid that use a little bit of both. So most often you'll find these closed-loop systems, right? They're building more of these now. Here's the issue. The cooling technology is going to vary by the project, and that's what's going to affect water demand. So again, I can't tell you how much water is going to be used because you don't know until that agreement is made. Take a guess at how much a standard gas center, so let's say a mid-sized gas center, uses in gallons of water a day. Who wants to take a guess at this? closed loop systems, there's a trade-off with what you think. It uses less water or more of what you think.
Probably better.
Electricity, right? So it's like 61 and a half, dozen the other, right? Open loop systems, they just use that million gallons that my friend here was just telling me about and hang those up. Here's the issue. Public reporting on actual water use. I was generous, like I said, it's a minute to me. It's often just, they just don't do it. It's not reported. You have no way of knowing how much water is being used. Yes, ma'am.
I did hear from one group this year. I just spent hearing Google runs in Berkeley County data center, and they were very excited to let us know that they only use 760 million gallons of water a year. Only 760 million gallons of water a year. That's only as much as 5 golf courses, basically. That's only as much as 5 golf courses. And so that's the only public reporting I've ever known. We can't find it. They're not mandated to tell us that. We can't get our elected officials. They can't even get answers. So I only have this number because they came excitedly to share that with us. Because to them, that is wise. And so, right. It's obscene.
That's a good one. Not a, not 760
They said 750 a year. That's 2 million.
Oh, you did.
That's 2 million.
I stay away from that. Good job. Yes. It's a lot of water. Yes, ma'am. If your community bills money, yeah. But how much of water on earth is cold? Water is, what was it? Yes, ma'am. Oh, it's okay. Yes, ma'am. Better is subjective. Better is subjective. How do I answer that? What way would data center be better or not? That's subjective, right? Depends on the community. Do you want to kind of tackle that? I'm going to have our resident expert. This nice lady is asking which way would be better. Yeah. I was feeling so. Yeah, it's better for community. I mean, our world, but otherwise, probably we need to be up there. That's what I'm trying to do.
So the benefits, right?
Yes.
Benefits can vary by project. Let me say. The benefits of data centers can vary by project. And it all is dependent on what is agreed to by the entity that is developing the data center and the municipality that's approving it. Sometimes, right, in many cases, these details are hidden through agreements that are made before the public. The public is made aware of these projects. That's why it's important that communities like Bennettsville and other rural areas establish land use policies through zoning to either restrict and classify data centers in the way that you want to classify. That's why these data centers are created approval, because zoning has not caught up with the classification, and they're being classified as industrial type of facilities, and these are more than industrial facilities. These should be classified as infrastructure systems because of the amount of electricity and water and resources that it is using. I liken them to almost like a utility transfer station. And they should be zoned and approved in those several ways. I don't know if that answered the question. There's a lot of details that we can, I think, change from the company.
But it always going to come back to the agreement. And I know I sound like a broken record, but that's just the truth of the matter. So let's talk about environmental waters and already get dried up or something. Okay. All of that has to do with that, right? But this is kind of talking more so about reduced flooding, but you gotta protect water quality, right? Wildlife and habitat. We got birds and people like that. Operations can affect natural habitat. Some people get joy from looking out the window and seeing squirrels and birds and things. And because of that coming all the time, sometimes you just pass animals leave. Like skipping my nerves when I hear it. Proximity to home schools and farmland. Good news, you guys live in a rural space. Bad news, you live in a rural space. There's so many places for them to live. I will tell you historically, most of them live in poor communities. This is one time they are sure they don't matter if white or black, just got to be poor. They're going to build here, right? Now, this is where it is in black communities because of the economic outlook in this country. But in rural areas, the economics are much more equalized across races many times. So it'll be close to farmland many times. It's wide open spaces. And it's done in military things. During construction, traffic patterns are going to be different. During construction, noise is going to be different. Things are just going to change. Visual impact. Some people just don't like paperwork. To look out and see have all this beautiful college landscape, and then there's this building, right? So it's visual impacts, and then land use patterns. That's kind of what Omar was talking about. How is this land use supposed to be used? Like according to zoning, what is this land supposed to be used for? Right? Is it supposed to be used for farmland, or can it be used for this industrial use? We don't know. And then site selection. Sometimes these facilities require large parcels of land. We already talked about hyperscale, 100,000 square feet. That's a lot of space in it. And that may change how the surrounding property is developed over time. I give you another number, and I'm throwing numbers at you here for it. About 90% of data centers in urban areas have another data center within a mile. So there's this thing called clustering, and about 67% of data center developers have that, and it claims that if I put one data center here, we're going to put more and cluster them together. It's just cheaper for them. Think about it. Grids are already set up. They're already kind of in that area. They understand zoning, the laws, and taxes, so it's like easier. So this is what continues to happen many times, not all the time. So let's talk about benefits, because I don't want data centers to take on people down, right? Let's see. So it's a significant private investment. This is an introduction proposal of upstate South Carolina and that center developer said they're going to infuse $400 million of just cash into this town. That's extremely poor. That's attractive. Construction jobs are multi-year build periods. So the typical center takes about 2 or 3 years, something like that. And so during that time, we have construction jobs. Sometimes those numbers are inflated. We found about about 50 construction folks, but it could rise up to the hundreds. But it's because they're switched out, right? So people come lay foundation first. You got people who, build walls, whatever you call construct the facility. Then you have people who come in, put the flooring in. Then you have people that come in and do the electrical. Those people are always not the same people, right? But if I'm playing with the numbers, I can say we employ 500 people, but not all at the same time, right? So most of these jobs are not permanent. Increased access. Playing in the center and now this land is valued at a lot more money than the homes beside it. Their land is going to go up too, so the taxes. So, utility and broadband infrastructure improvements. Folks who live in the data center, their internet probably is going to work much better, right? Probably don't have connectivity issues, right? High-paid technical and operation jobs. You'll hear about this a lot. You'll hear them say, these jobs are going to pay $42 an hour. And they do. They require a very specific set of skills, right? Yes, sir.
No offense to Monroe County.
Yeah.
We don't have people who fill those jobs.
I couldn't do the job either. Right.
They brought them outside.
Yeah.
They only hire 10 to 15 people once it's set up.
Yeah, we've seen that being trained. Right, about 10 folks permanent, and they're highly skilled people like IT type. Y'all saw me, I couldn't get this PowerPoint going, so I'm yelling off the top. I couldn't get the job. Right, but those jobs will pay about $8K demand that they integrate workforce development and train people to staff these jobs. But, you know, these companies are here to make money. So I gotta take time and train these 18 to 24-year-olds to learn how to do this, and, you know, that takes more money, right? But you may better put that into a agreement and then hire people from locally. It's not been something I've seen done, but who knows? Additional economic activity for local businesses. Now, this is what I've seen people say that these businesses are more sturdy, right? Don't have turnover. It's not like a store coming and they don't perform well. You know that a data center is going to be successful. People are going to use it. So you don't have to worry about them building it and then in 2 years they leaving it like a store, right? It's going to be there. So if other businesses come in who are related to the data center, right? Let's say a new IT tech firm comes in, right? They're probably going to have a pretty sturdy business model. They're probably going to be here for a while, right? So, there's that. This is what you're going to want to ask them. Some of these questions, maybe not all of them, some of them. What number of jobs are permanent versus temporary? Then, if there's a significant private investment, let's say $400 million, we talk about something called equitable distribution. Where is it going? Is it all going to go to the police department? Maybe that's what you want, right? Is it all going to go to hospitals? Is it all going to go to schools? Is it going to go to depressed communities? Or is it going to go and look like contracts, right? For people who own small businesses. Whatever's attractive to you, but you got to ask. And then who decides that? Who decides where the funds go? Because where I want for this being on that wants to go, thank you, service, by the way, may not be where I want it to go. So who decides what communities it goes to? What's the decision model? Right? You got to find out. We already talked about local workers. What skills and education are required? Like, do I need to have an IT degree? Do I need to be a computer science major? What do I need to know? Apprenticeships, workforce training. This is a big one. This question, right? I mean, contractors from outside of the community. What's the percentage? Let's say something like 99, you might want to have a conversation. Right? And will property taxes increase along with that increased tax base? You know, if I'm paying, let's say, $3,000 for my taxes, and in 1 year it defrauds $8,000, is there a bonus outside for people who are experiencing that?
town doesn't use a million gallons of water every day, like data center would. So he's more focused on, we do need money, but there's other ways to make money without compromising their life and the livelihood of the community. And so that's what we need to think of. Just because you're poor doesn't mean you have to not be healthy and not thrive. And I think we should find ways to thrive as a community.
Okay, developers often complain construction will bring hundreds of construction jobs and highways. Construction jobs being bodies and being built, right? So that's temporary jobs. They're a couple of months or something, right? And then after that, it's a job. And it is, it's a great space.
There might be like maybe it's a security, they used to hire security personnel. Yes, ma'am.
I just want to say that this gentleman is correct, and that needed to be brought up because it's a fact that these data centers will be obsolete, but the particular ones that they build in 10 to 15 years. That's why these sweet deals are made at 10, 15-year clips, so they, one, may not have to pay any utilities whatsoever. And they come in, they're going to ruin everything. It's not for the people. They're not coming here for the people.
All right, thank you for your perspective. All right, y'all, let's talk about taxes. I gave you guys a handout, and you should have like a tax flow, and we're gonna how to go with this, right? So traditional property taxes, you know how they work. Every year the assessor looks at the property and says, this is how much you owe. And it varies, right? Depending on the year, what's going on. People look at this tax structure as more attractive because it can be a potentially higher revenue over time, right? Especially with some of these files we'll talk about in a moment. Can last anywhere from 10 years to 40. I think 40 is the longest I've seen. And those files, that's standard in the sense for fee in lieu of taxes or payment in lieu of taxes. And basically, there's a negotiated payment structure. The data center comes in and develops it. It's going to be $400 million up front, and we pay no taxes after that. Right? If it's $400 million, it's going to last you 10, 20 years. That's it. Y'all pay anything else. That's basically what happens. Now, that's often used as economic development incentives. Because a community like Marlboro, like Jimmy said, they say, we can build a community center. We can build a resilience center. We can have a training program. We can use our school, new things, right? Now, that thing about predictable revenue, it reduces the company's tax burden. So it gives you two things. Some people see both as a benefit. You know exactly what you're going to get up front. You know, you get $400 million, that's guaranteed check. You don't really know what's going to be guaranteed on taxes, right? And it reduces the company's tax burden, which makes it attractive, and it makes them want to come build there. What's the question we got to ask? How are the benefits of either distributed across the community? Because there's been communities that's brought data centers, they've been told we're bringing $400 million, and they're like, I sure don't know where it is. I don't see any change from those funds that they brought, right? So be very specific about where those dollars are going to be directed and how they're going to be allocated. So you guys should have this graphic. And thank you so much for putting this together for us. But you can see here how we map the money. Where does the data center go? Now, mind you, all of this is a suggestion. This is an assumption. You won't know until your agreement is put together. But you're going to go to get the data center investment. We want about $400 million. Local taxes and fees are generated. That's going to be based on whatever the agreement is. And then you get to this potential distribution to community service. This is going to be based on whatever the agreement is, right? You can't assume that the local veterans group is going to get 1% of those dollars. It is not written. You can't assume that you're going to get 4 new fire trucks or whatever, right? You just don't know unless it's in the agreement. But it can go. So these are the typical main funding destinations: schools and education, which could look like teacher salaries, school ops, facilities, maintenance, new books, all that. County government, so you're talking about public services like police, fire, so on and so forth. Emergency services, negotiates an agreement with the county, right? It's a fixed payment structure. It's usually a reduced rate from what they probably would pay for taxes, maybe, and then it's potentially distributed to county government, schools. It's going to vary, infrastructure, special funds in some cases. So in this case, the payment amount is negotiated, going without $400 million. It's often lower than full property taxes. It just is, because if you have an agreement for 40 years, you won't stand to imagine that a data center that has millions in property is probably going to pay more than that over 40 years, right? Often lower than full property taxes, but it does provide predictable revenue. You get $400 million, you know that. It is used to attract large-scale investment, right? It makes it attractive when they do these things. It's an important note. In many communities, the final financial outcome becomes clear only after agreements are finalized. So it's an order, right? Agreements finalized and then publicly disclosed. So once you're informed, usually the agreement is finalized. If you have a question, yes, sir? That's just plain old research, not my opinion. But that really takes is what I'm always coming So this is on our side, because we go
No,
through
no, no,
everybody.
not to the public, to city and county officials and the legislators.
So you're asking how many like city council meetings did we go to?
Not the meetings, it
Presentation.
doesn't have to be the meetings,
Okay,
to the people who are making the decisions.
okay.
They
So,
need to be educated.
yes, ma'am. So all our forms are open to everyone, which is why I asked how many of that to officials. We haven't done any specific outreach specifically to city and county council people. We're open to it. If anybody wants to
Citizens have not been invited to make this presentation to the elected officials
No.
and the state legislators.
no, ma'am. Yes.
So our legislature is deeply aware of everything that Shane is saying because I came on as the lobbyist in 2023 for the South Carolina Energy Justice Coalition. That's how I met the marvelous Ms. Hannah over here. And so we have been advocating since 2023 in the fall at every conversation with conservationists, which is a meeting that the Senate holds in the fall to hear about all the conservation issues across the state, and we've let them know every single thing that's here. So that would be any of the senators who showed up to those hearings, any of the senators who showed up to those meetings. We've let them know all the water concerns, all the energy concerns, all the concerns about noise and disruption to the environment and land use, all of that. And that was meant to inform their decision first around the energy bill, which we know had a large role in making sure that data centers can come and do business in this state. So we've been advocating on this issue at the legislative level and the state level for at least 3 years now.
But they haven't passed anything that will protect us.
No, ma'am. 3 data center regulation bills died in the Senate this year because of their refusal to give this attention.
So we need to be careful who we elect for office.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And can I just give a little clarity? The Energy Justice Coalition is made up of 80 organizations, over 85 organizations. And so we put together our legislative strategy, our approach to the work. Okay, so we are made up of over 85 organizations, and we have a team of 3. Shane is the executive director. I'm the chief, what do you call me? Relations. That sounds fancy. I appreciate it. Then we have a Holly who does amazing program work. The truth is, a lot of this work is deeply under-resourced in our state, and that's not an accident. That is by design. And so, this is just a new industry that someone talked about. Virginia, I think it was the man who came here. I wish we had some more time. We had much more to share with him. But talking about Virginia, I've been working with folks across the country to stop these things. With this work, but I also do some work with the NAACP as the Environmental and Climate Justice Chair. What I can tell you is that this narrative that Shane is presenting with such great intention and care, making sure that she's not telling you how to feel or what to think, is the same way we've been trying to talk to our legislature and county council. But the capacity to be able to have these meetings and go to them, it requires resources that is intentionally being stripped from groups like ours. And I can say it due to, our federal administration. Groups like ours, resources are being diminished so that work in industries like that is going to be exchanged. She's so good at her work that she's going to make sure she's going to give you unbiased information. That's not her strength. Okay? So she's done a beautiful job laying out all the research and letting folks make their own, that's why I'm the lobbyist. This is my job to convince people. That part's not our work. So I just want to make sure that we would love to have the capacity to go to set up a county council education tour. It's simply intentionally being, under-resourced. So,
Thank you for that. Yes, ma'am.
Every council member, city council people, they were invited to this program. So I just want to put that on the record, and it did. Everyone was invited. And so many of them want to be a part of the place. Yeah, but I just let everyone know, it's nothing hidden, nothing secret. I need to let everyone know that through my resources,
3 counties in stopping data centers from showing up to their communities. And so the first one was Kershaw County, and they were suggesting a 162-acre data center. The developer, just also important to know, a lot of times these developers are not the same folks who are going to be a part of the folks who are running the data center. So a lot of the questions we have, they quite literally can't answer them. They just want to buy them and then set up shop and then sell it to one of these tech companies, okay? So sometimes the questions we have, the truth is, they really can't answer because they don't know that stuff. So we were able to stop the one in Kershaw County, 162 acres, was on over 15 jobs. Then we were able to stop the one in Colleton County, which was over 800 acres. It was going to destroy the ACE basin, and I think they were talking something like 50 jobs, permanent jobs. And then that would take a lawsuit and quite a bit of community pushback. And then the third one was Marion County this morning that they actually defeated that. And I am here to tell you that the way you stop this, the way we stop this across the country and this state, is to show up in large numbers, be loud, tell your county council, no, we don't want this, we hate this, it's not going to help us, and we're not going to stop showing up until y'all tell these people no. And it sounds a little too good to be true, but this morning we learned that that's exactly what's happening in Marion County. Grassroots folks like neighbors coming together. This is a very unifying issue because we all pay light bills. We all want our bill to turn on our sink and flush our toilet. And I want to emphasize one of the things about the sound disturbance. I'm a nature girl, and so it does, run away the birds and those things. But also, it's important to think about the type of rest you get. You can't sleep if there's a constant hum coming from something right down the road from the house. And it's one of those things where if you kind of don't know what it is, you don't know what it is. But if you're hearing from people in these communities that live by these things, it's ruining their sleep. And if you cannot get good rest, you cannot be well. So it's just another attack on, people living in rural communities, poor folks. And not saying that everybody is poor, but that's what we're seeing. That these types of developments are targeted to areas where people don't have the resources to fight that. But I want you to know the only resource we've seen really is the voice. And so I just want to encourage y'all, I'm very church. I came here to tell you that y'all just, keep on to speak up and stick together. That has worked. And I'm encouraged by that because the truth is, I don't know if the resources are going to come where we can do what you're discussing. That's a dream that we can safeguard y'all in the county council. And that is our hope that we can grow this work and be able to do it. But we are in a state so much on the defense on so many things that it's hard for us to organize sometimes and be proactive. And so, if you all would like to invite your county council to invite us, and we can get I want to be clear too, a welcoming invitation. It needs to feel like we are desired here to come and do some education because this issue, Shane says often, we're talking big billions. We're talking a lot of money. And in small towns, that gets a little touchy. You can start to have conversations where, we don't always feel safe to be an advocate against this. So I want to name that too. We're not from here, so we're happy to come here and stand with each other and stand with you and make sure that if it feels, like intimidation is happening to keep you from speaking up, that we can help you give light to that as well because there are ways to make sure that everybody gets to have a say in this. And so Shane did not come here to tell y'all what to do, but I did come here to tell y'all what has worked. And what has worked is people speaking up and saying, we don't want this. And we have colleagues from across the country that can attest to the fact that that has been the way to stop this, if that's what you want.
Your community values need to guide your growth. I think it's like So basically that is the thing. That is my whole presentation, and I just want us to just, have a conversation. If you have any questions that were not covered by that presentation, let me know. But we've been sitting for a while, so we're gonna do something, then we'll take some questions. For the elected officials, we're still in the house. I want to do something, right? I just want to ask y'all, my audience, to do something for me. And if you're recording, I want you to turn your camera away for a second so people can have a little bit of secrecy, right? So if you can, I want you to stand up. Just stand up when you're sitting. If you're from this community and you would like for a data center to come in, just stand up. Thank you, and that's all right. And okay, stand up if you would like for a data center to come in. All right, thank you, ma'am, for participating. Thank you so much. All right, and I just, yes, ma'am, sure.
Good afternoon, everyone. I believe in progress. I believe in economic development. I believe in the present. The data center and solar farm is the present. It's not the future. It's the present. Just as she was saying, we love to use the technology, so it's the present. And so we have to look at Marlboro County. If you drive to the cloud, it looks like a ghost town. We haven't had a new house that we built in cloud in 38 years, with the exception of the few rich people in cloud. And they built 2 mansions on number 9. But the regular citizens in cloud, they cannot afford to build a house. So we need to do everything we can to develop Marlboro County. We need to develop it to the point where our children in Chicago and New York who want to come back home and get a job. My children in Chicago, I have to fly all to Chicago and St. Louis to see my children when they should be able to work in Marlboro County. We're about development. We're about love. We're about Jesus. Jesus said, what? On earth as in heaven. So Marlboro County should be golden. Marlboro County should be the place to live. And it is not the place to live. So let's look at data centers and any other technology that can develop from Marlboro County. We don't have time to play games. These decisions are life and death decisions. People will die in Marlboro County if we do not make the right decisions. So it's no game, it's no joke, it's no big me or little you. This is about love and progress coming to Marlboro County. And I want us to get committees together so we can start working. We're intelligent in Marlboro County, so we can work out any plan to make data centers fit in Marlboro County, to make solar farms fit in Marlboro County. I'm tired of paying a $600 and $700 next bill. So we got to do better for the citizens in Marlboro County, and we have to work together in love and harmony to make Marlboro County grow and be the kind of place that God wants it to be. For people in Marlboro County, highest unemployment rate, the lowest educational rate. And God wants that now. It's not wrong that He wants us to be the best that we can be. All right. And I agree. That's in my heart.
Thank you. I didn't realize you guys had $600-$700 energy bills. That's good intel to have. Who's next?
Good afternoon. I'm sure everyone knows who I am. I want to say 2 things. If you're in my age group, you remember how we fought off that mega dump. Okay? They wanted to come, that place that they had in the Wallace area was the last site in the United States where a mega dump could be built because there were regulations on how close they could be together. The nearest one to us is in Bishopville. You see that mountain that keeps growing? That's the mega dump. I was on the county council. I helped fight that off. And I was offered money to go along with them. Well, what do you want
jobs here, but the data center is not bringing jobs here to outlet the community needs, first and foremost. And that's why you gotta know God for yourself. Like when people like to say Jesus, if you know God, God says study to show thyself approved. Don't just say Jesus on that. Jesus wants us to prosper and be abundant. And a data center will not allow that for this community. And study to show thyself approved. Don't just listen to people and they just say Jesus is Jesus. If you know God for yourself, God wants you to be prosperous and healthy. And that's all I gotta say. I gotta go.
Several things. First of all, Chesterfield County has put a moratorium on data centers for a year and a half, so that they can look at how that's going to affect their citizens. And in particular, I think they may have proposed a data center in Pageant, South Carolina, which is currently
Did I bring over and talk about the moratorium? Can you tell me what a moratorium is? Because we use these terms. I want to make sure everybody in the room knows what we're talking about. This lady was talking about some county is approving moratorium on data centers.
Yeah, moratoriums can be used to restrict the siting or the approval of data centers until you have the information that you need to make a decision. You can also, I was just asking the former mayor, does the town of Bennettsville, do you all have any zoning ordinance? And she was saying that it's pretty much outdated, right? So your primary, I think, next step should be reviewing those ordinances and updating to ensure that data centers, if that is your desire as a community, to restrict the approval of data centers. There's ways that you can do it in your zoning ordinance. You can get the county as well, but the town itself can develop its own ordinances. And you can put requirements, right, that they have to meet. Environmental reviews, community impact reviews, cumulative impact. So you want to look at, I've heard a lot around cumulative impacts. Those are ways that you can slow it down, slow the approval down, so that the community can understand what it is that it is approved. So the zoning, right, I don't know when the last time your ordinance has been updated. That is something that I would highly suggest that the town looks at.
You brought up a very important point because, skills talking about our work at the state level, we're going to continue to do that. I'm sure that HCS coming, that's all right. But it's a lot that communities can do at the county level, municipality level. It doesn't have to be waiting for general assembly to pass. If that's your desire, right?
I'm against the data centers. Like they were saying, I have been able to have 15 jobs. We're going to 15 jobs. 800 acres have 50 jobs. We got no 50 jobs. They come to the poor community because they figure you don't have a lot of money. So they throw $400 million at you. And they ain't going to use. And they just throw numbers at you. But what's the long-term effect? We got to stop right here. And we got to learn to go over there. Because the long-term effect is not worth those $2.
Here's what's really scary. Right now, these data centers, or the people that represent them, can come in and make deals with a city, with a county, and there is no currently any state oversight currently. Now, there is legislation that I guess didn't pass. The lady is referring to it. It's State Bill 867. It passed the Senate Agriculture and Natural Resources Committee. And it holds for statewide permitting. It creates a dedicated data center development office under the South Carolina Department of Environmental Services. New data centers must receive a state permit to operate, shifting ultimate development Also, tiered regulations. Facilities are grouped into 3 tiers based on their electrical load. Larger facilities face stringent, comprehensive infrastructure and environmental reviews. And here's where it really affects us: ratepayer protections. It mandates that the Public Service Commission only approve rate agreements where data center operators pay 100% of their own energy infrastructure needs, blocking those costs from being shifted to residential power. And that's another thing. Like I said, these data centers come in, and they're slick. They got lawyers. They got people behind them, and they will pull the wool over our eyes, our collective eyes. And we need to, like I said, I don't know what the status of Big 6-7 is, but we certainly need to keep the regulatory agency of the state involved and not let these little deals come through. That's why they need the non-disclosure agreements. There's deals going on that they don't want you to know about that will affect you.
This is I think it's sad that we have so much need in Marlboro County, and we have citizens who do not want to explore, study, research further. We have 14 data centers in Greenville, so it's not just coming to poor area. Greenville, South Carolina, not poor area. There are 14 data centers there, and I don't know how many I have in the Charleston area. I think the one in Myrtle Beach. But data centers are present, it's not the future, it's the present. It's going to depend on how we live our lives. Everybody likes to use, as she said, your technology. And it's also going to decide in what direction Marlboro County will go in. You want Marlboro County to continue to be poor? I don't know. I'm not like living in a poor community. This is my home. And I'm here to stay and to work to make my home better. And so we have to bring it in Marlboro County. Let's go on to videos and look at how we can make data centers the best data center in America come to Marlboro County. We don't have to take what other people did. We can come together and define for ourselves what kind of data center we want and how to make it happen. We got brilliant people. That's why we had the Gulf area in Bennettsville. We got brilliant people in Marlboro County. So let's not be afraid of progress and be afraid. This is not, the Martians are not coming. This is an opportunity that's trying to come to Marlboro County.
Thanks so much for that. All right, we're going to have next slide for
Marlboro County, stand up. Marlboro County, stand up. We cannot sell ourselves short. We cannot jump on the first thing that's coming by because it's trending. If we looked at history throughout time, we've had whole counties, whole towns that have been destroyed because of companies that have built things that didn't have proper regulation. Cancer was in the ground, was in the water. People have died. Everything that sounds good is not good. We don't have enough data. We don't have enough research. And we are rural. We are impoverished as far as the data says. We are considered poor, and we have a lot of undeveloped land. So we would be the prime candidate for someone to say, oh, let's move there and let's experiment while we're learning. Why? Because we have the power and we have the money. But it does not make it right because we are human beings. We have to stick together. We don't even have a hospital here. So what if our children are getting sick or we're getting sick because, oh, we got $400 million project that came, but now, don't get me wrong, they don't even know how to tax that right because they're going to give them fees in lieu of taxes. They don't give us fees in lieu of taxes. Our taxes went up. Did they not go up?
be training. We need to be living.
I just wanted to say I'm an advocate, and I want to be an advocate for this because I think every citizen here in Monroe County and the city should know what's going on. Virginia saying.
That was your first advocate over here. It's Virginia. Y'all, thank you so much for being here. We're going to wrap down. It's been a long day. I appreciate you guys for obliging me and dealing with all my tape issues now. I couldn't get one of those jobs, you can see. But this is an important issue. I know it's a hot issue. It can be emotional. It should be because it's going to decide the trajectory of your life for generations, right? You know, whether you go with medicine or whether you do not. So this first step, you care enough to be here to ask questions, share your voice, tells me that you care about your community. And once you have care, you can move with concern. Once you go with concern, you have a commitment to make change. So I appreciate you guys for being able to do so. And I'm going to hand it over to my sweet goodness further to close us out.
Again, thank you. Let's get Shane and her I need to be clear. We are not here to advocate for or against. They're here to provide the clarity that we need. So, Shane, say it.
I think we want pictures of my
Can somebody use this camera? Thank you, sir. But while you're coming, I just want to say to the county, to the community as a whole, please understand, I'm a council person who likes to give you informative information. I'm not here to, I need to make this clear. I am not here to go and say, to confirm or deny anything, but I still like to have information sessions. And that's what this is, an information session, so you can make a long, informed decision. So for that reason, I do thank the South Carolina Energy Justice Coalition. I thank every one of you for having an interest in coming, because this is not something that just happened this year. We came, as you said, from the leadership legislature 3 years ago, and I just want everyone to know that let's take this energy that we're using. If you're for or against it, let's take this energy that we're using to come together and see how we can make our come together. And for those of you who want to post on Facebook, please post the correct thing. Ms. Lawson is not advocating for or against the center. I want you to be informed. I just don't want anybody to put anything out that Ms. Lawson said incorrectly. So for that reason, thank you again. Thank you to the community centers for letting us use this building. I do appreciate this. With that being said, let me get the last one.
I'm going to ask to share the PowerPoint. I don't normally do that. I'll send some follow-up resources down. Okay, I'll send some follow-up resources. And one last thing. Some people get recording, that's fine. I just ask that you get recording, post what you have in full, because it takes a lot of context, so things are not pulled out, okay? Because as he said, this can be a word that bad words can be attributed really quickly, right? And so we want to make sure it's fair. That was recorded for yourself. That's perfectly fine for your own education. But if you're intending to put it on social media, you need to do it with full context. You know, media knows how to do that.